I'm told we're live, but I never believe it. Never. And only for the 3 people who are watching right this second, because they came early, will know I never believe it when we're live. Anyway, welcome to Healthcare Triage Live. We are so grateful that you joined us. I think we will probably be on all of January, which is great, because my travel is tomorrow to San Francisco, so I can be here today. We'll get our usual stuff out of the way. Check out the Facebook page, facebook.com/healthcare triage. Monday, we had an episode on the USPSTF and why it's sort of controversial and what it means and how it works. And it's hugely important, and not enough of you have watched it. You really should go watch it. You evidently loved Friday's Healthcare Triage News when I talked about my kids asking me lots of questions about sex, which makes me comment to Mark that we should do lots of episodes about sex. I was thinking we should do a whole series with my kids just sitting and asking me questions about sex, because you guys evidently would love that. I don't know. Anyway, also merch. I can never remember it. hctmerch.com. Oh, look at that, hctmerch.com. And of course, patreon.com/healthcare triage, where you can support the show, and more people support the show every week. It is mind-blowing and gratifying, and we're extremely grateful to everybody that does that. Let us begin. Oh, by the way, I think Mark has finally put a disclaimer down below, so I don't have to say it so much. But it goes without saying, nothing I say here is medical advice. Disclaimer down below. Anyway, to begin, first question comes from Alexander Bosch. As someone who wears glasses, should I consider laser eye surgery if I work 12 hours a day in front of a computer? Well, as someone who wears glasses, I don't get laser eye surgery, so I'm probably the wrong person to ask. You can see that I still wear them. Why? I'm conservative, and I'm a non-interventionalist, and I have always worn glasses. I don't mind wearing glasses. At this point, they almost seem like a fashion accessory for me, and so I don't get the eye surgery, even though it appears to be incredibly safe and lots of people love it, and it seems to be good. I am just scared. I don't have any other word for it. Like, I don't want to get a laser in my eye. What if something went wrong? I don't know. What are the long-term outcomes from it? I don't know, because we haven't been doing it for 40 or 50 years. So I'm conservative. But that doesn't mean that the benefits might not outweigh the risks. For you, you should talk to your optac. So I'm the wrong guy to ask. Hercados P. Does Bandaid help you heal faster? All right, so this can be read 2 ways. One is, does Bandaid work better than the generic brand of covering? And in that case, I'd be like, no, I don't think there's any evidence at all that Bandaid and by the way, Bandaid is a brand. That's how awesome their advertising is, that you call it. It's like Kleenex or Xerox. Like, you just assume that they're all, it's a copier. They're not Xerox machines. That's the Xerox company. They're not all Band-Aids. That's the Bandaid brand. There's lots of other brands too. Regardless, I don't know if there's any evidence that Bandaid brands work better. However, if you're asking about does it help to cover a wound to help it heal better, the answer is, shocking enough, yes. Keeping a wound covered and moist, and that's a good use of the word moist, actually does help it to heal better. It reduces the chance of infection. It reduces the risk of scarring. It keeps things going. There's the whole myth that you need to let a wound air out to help it heal faster. That is wrong. In fact, when you do let it air and dry out, that's when you get scab formation, and scabs prevent healing. Healing occurs if you have a cut. It's not that everything grows from just en masse. What happens is from the edges, it grows and grows and grows and grows. And in order for the skin to grow, it needs that sort of warm, covered, moist surface to keep growing. Scabs are a way for the body to provide protection when you can't protect yourself. That's, animals have scabs, definitely, but the animals also don't care about scars. You can have scabs too, and you can have scars as well, but you don't have to. If you keep it covered and moist, it won't do that as much. And in fact, there have been randomized controlled trials to prove this, as I think we talked about last time. There have been studies, a lot of them in pigs, because pig skin has a lot of similarities to human skin, where they have done studies to see, do wounds heal better when they are covered and kept moist? And yes, they do. So, do bandage coverings like Band-Aids that keep things covered and perhaps keep them from drying out help wounds heal faster? Yes. The answer is yes. Ikuwan asks, how do you feel about off-label prescriptions? Any relevant evidence? So, let's explain what off-label prescriptions are to start. So when a drug company does a trial, they are doing it for a specific thing. they might say, we're testing this drug in this population to see if it works. And that is what they're allowed to then advertise and promote. And that's what they get, what's the word I'm looking for? The ability to do it by itself. It's going to come to me later. They get, was that?
Autonomy?
Well, it's not autonomy. It's more that it's the privilege of, like, it's not having the patent. It's just going to kill me until, and it's going to be running in the back of my head for the rest of Healthcare Triage Live. Anyway, they get a period of time when they have exclusivity. Exclusivity, that was the word I was looking for. When they can advertise their thing. That's why it's so big for a drug company to be first. That's why you don't get generics till later. But what doctors have the absolute right to do is to use those drugs for other things. And then sometimes people accuse drug companies, rightly or wrongly, of sending in, drug reps to sort of tell docs, I know that it only is this good, but did you know that research shows it's good for all these other things too, to try to expand its use? And in fact, off-label prescribing is very, very common in many countries, I'm sure, including the United States, where doctors have the right to write any prescription for any drug for any use that they feel is justified by their experience or evidence. So, a lot of drugs are written off-label. Now, you shouldn't actually take that necessarily as a bad thing because, without off-label prescribing, we'd almost be able to do no prescribing in children because it is rare that a lot of times drug companies will actually do the studies that are necessary for big drugs to make sure that they work the same in kids, because why do it? It's already out there. They're making a ton of money. But we know, for instance, if this drug works in adults, a lot of times we assume it's going to work in kids, or at least in like adolescents. And so we do a lot of prescribing for children off-label because it was never what the original studies were done for. There's also a lot of times when things work for this specific population, but then we start to broaden and use it. That is sometimes bad. It is sometimes good. Off-label prescribing can be a bad thing. It can also be a good thing. And so, unfortunately, it's not something I can give you a cut and dry answer on. There are times when it's too broad. There are times when it's an absolute necessity because without it, we would be able to prescribe very few people drugs that they need. Midnight SG asks, scrubs versus a business attire with a lab coat. What do you think non-surgical doctors should wear? What did you wear while practicing? Well, I still do practice. It's not a huge amount. I still have clinic, however. So I hate the white coat. I used to say while I was in medical school that there's a very fine line between medical student and busboy. When it comes to the white coat. It's this short little white, it's silly. I don't even like the big white coat. One, I think it scares kids, and I'm a pediatrician, because they associate it with the doctor and the clinical, and so why do that to begin with? Two, anything that you're taking from room to room to room to room only increases the chance of infection. Something you wear not only from room to room, but day to day to day increases the chance of transmitting something. Why do you do that? It's the same idea why ties are probably a bad idea. And they've done tons of studies showing that ties are filthy and germ-ridden, but we still wear them because that's what society demands. On the other hand, you don't want to just wear crap, because then people don't take you seriously when you're being a professional. So scrubs, when I was a resident, loved them because I just basically was so depressed and miserable that I wanted to be in pajamas all of the time. But that doesn't mean, again, that they're clean or that they're a good idea. But it's also, if I'm going to spend 36 hours in the hospital, I'm not going to want to change and sleep and do all this stuff, especially when there's no time to even shower. So yeah, I used to wear scrubs because if I had 20 minutes to go sleep, I just wanted to lay down in my clothes, and I wasn't going to do that in business attire. You do it in scrubs. And on the other hand, they don't smell so good after 36 straight hours of use, and people aren't as good about cleaning them as they should be. So neither of these things are good. What do? I'm reasonably professional without the lab coat. I wear basically, tie, shirt, pants, no jacket. You could probably get away without the tie. Surgeons are probably screaming because every surgeon I know is dressed like in a three-piece suit, it feels like, for grand rounds. Otherwise, they're going to get in trouble. No, I'm joking. But they do expect to be in jacket and tie in crazy situations. I don't understand it. Anyway, so I'm thinking of it more from the perspective of a pediatrician. I don't want to scare children. I don't want to increase the chance of infection, but I still do want to impress upon parents that I'm a professional and I know what I'm doing. So that is what I do. Reddit 5, Fox Fact. Oh no, I'm sorry, from Reddit. This is 5 FoxFat. How effective is Tamiflu at treating and preventing influenza? I've heard about scandals involving company in the past, and I wonder if it'd be classified in the same category as Airborn in treating and preventing illness. No. Oh, okay. First of all, you had me until you brought up Airborn, because Airborn is like, they were a fraud. I mean, like, they made it up. It was like 2 guys in a lab making up data in a garage. In a garage. No science, total lies, lost a court case, millions of dollars. I don't know why anyone still takes this. Evidently someone's mom in the room here still takes it from what I hear. It's not a good idea. Airborn is not a good idea. In fact, this was in not 1 but 2 of our books. Airborn, no. However, Tamiflu is not in the same case. They do have a lot of research for Tamiflu. So the problem with Tamiflu is that while sort of published research shows that it works, there are many people who believe that that research is biased, that there's a real publication bias in the stuff that has been published, that the good data gets published and the bad data has been squashed. And there was a lot of, I think, anger at Roche, which I believe is the company, but don't quote me on that, that they were not releasing all the data. And so there was a big editorial in the BMJ a couple of years ago that sort of looked at publication bias and looked at everything else and said, there really isn't a lot of good evidence that Tamiflu works in the ways that it does. People would say it prevents hospitalization, and there's not a lot of good evidence for that. They'd say it prevents complications from the flu. There's not a lot of good evidence from that. And they would say it reduces symptoms in people who take it, and there is some evidence for that. And since then, I think Roche has released more data, and it appears, as far as I know, in the last sort of roundup of the data, remember again, you can't just read meta-analyses for these, because meta-analyses can only look at the published data. You have to look at sort of even the unpublished data. There's still not a ton of good evidence, as far as I know, that it prevents hospitalizations, it prevents complications. There is still a debate to be had about whether it shortens the length of symptoms. But you have to start taking it very early in the course of your flu. So you can't like wait while you're sick. If you think you have flu, you got to be diagnosed with flu pretty quickly. You got to start taking the Tamiflu very quickly. And if you do, you may get like a day less time of symptoms. That means something to some people. So when you weigh the risks and benefits, you talk to your doctor and you decide if the risks and and the sort of the side effects and the potential issues with Tamiflu are worth it to perhaps have a shorter duration of illness. Flu sucks. And it is not unreasonable for people to want to have a shorter duration of illness. But if you think you're preventing hospitalizations or complications, which is often the way that the stuff is pitched at insurance and government systems and everything else in order to get them to pay for it, data is not clear on that. And so that's why a lot of the arguments being made in the UK are that this has been like stealing from the government or a scandal because they're paying for something that they're not really getting. If they thought they were getting shorter, no hospitalizations or preventing of complications. If, however, you're fine with paying for a shorter duration of symptoms, then there may still be a benefit there. And this is one I wonder whether we should be doing a whole episode on that. Maybe, because it's probably much more data there than I've said. Anyway, next question. Do OBs intervene too much? That's from GlyphX42. Is it true that OBs in the United States seem to overuse interventions beyond what evidence calls for, i.e. that we actually use more interventions but have worse outcomes than many other modern countries? Well, now all the OBs are going to hate me. So there is evidence that we are doing too much, yes, in the United States. So there was a great study recently. I don't know, we come up with such great, you guys ask good questions. I should be doing episodes on these. So there was a great study recently that looked at the rate of cesarean section and then I think correlated it with like infant mortality and other outcomes. And they found that there was a sweet spot at about like 19%, if I remember correctly. I think the number's 19, but I could be wrong. This is Healthcare Triage Live. But anything above that didn't seem to have benefit. Like you got benefit, and then it leveled off. And of course, the United States is like up at like 30% because we're doing too much. We have doubled, I think, the rate of C-sections in the United States and not seen a significant benefit, in terms of like what we hoped we would in reductions of infant mortality and everything else. We also do a lot more interventions in looking at, assisted delivery, doing things like, augmenting labor. And so we do a lot in the United States. It's funny you bring this up. My next New York Times column is actually talking about home birth and complications, and I don't want to spoil too much about it. But, it is clear that if you go in the hospital, you're going to get more stuff than if you don't go in the hospital. And there's more people are pushing for home births. In the United Kingdom, it's like at 10%. I think in the Netherlands, it's even higher. And there's an argument to be made that we do a lot in the United States without seeing real benefit. Our infant mortality is still higher than you would expect. Our maternal mortality is much higher than you would expect. And we do much more in the United States than we do in lots of other countries. So having said that, there are lots of people that need those interventions. Some people do need C-sections. I said before, 19%. It's not like it should be zero. It should be a decent number. And then there's lots of other things that obese do that probably helps and save babies as well. And putting my money where my mouth is, my wife and I would always have a baby in the hospital because that's just how I am. And I've seen the bad outcomes and I worry about it. And you should go read my column in a week and a half in the New York Times. There'll be much more information then. And then in the future, we will adapt that for a healthcare triage episode and talk about that. Liquorat. I don't know. Diet is the key to weight loss. What foods have low calories and will keep me full and functional the longest? Basically, how do I reduce calories without feeling hungry? Well, fruits and vegetables. Vegetables especially, low in calories, high in fiber, lots of them, going to keep you full. There are many meats and proteins which are not terribly high in calorie, which are also going to help it. And there's lots of arguments to be made that like even some of the fats are probably good at helping satiate people. Nuts, healthy nuts. Lots of people love olive oil. There are lots of ways to eat healthy, but I think you're looking at this the wrong way. We have a whole episode on food recommendations. You should go watch it. It was a popular episode. And I think focusing on calories and stuffing yourself to make yourself full is the wrong approach and won't work in the long term. I know there's no question that the calories are probably a part of it, that, stuffing ourselves and eating more than we need is definitely a problem. But a lot of that is because we keep trying to manipulate our diet in weird ways, and that doesn't satiate us. And then we wind up eating more or cheating or being unable to sustain the kind of changes we make over the long term. It's also, we were talking about this as we were typing in this question before we started, and you're going to be hungry. The idea that we need to avoid hunger is weird. Hunger is a normal body response, and it's also if you just your body is geared towards adding in calories for the lean times when animals and evolution when there might not always be food. So just because you're hungry doesn't mean you got to eat all the time. And it is okay to sort of ignore the hunger for a period of time. You'd probably be okay. I bet you probably still get enough calories. So it's like, I know sometimes that I'm hungry and I don't need to eat anymore because I've had plenty to eat. Times I sometimes take this back is that when I see small children, especially when they're like growing fast, I'm amazed at sometimes how much food one of them can put down. And I am not yet unconvinced, even though I don't have evidence, that during a growth spurt, kids will trend to times when they want to eat more, want to eat less. But most kids are like, they if you don't mess with it too much, their bodies are, I think, a little bit better about figuring out what they need. But that's unsupported by evidence, and you shouldn't. In general, back to your question, it is there. Go read the food recommendations. Try them out. Let me know what you think. Heather Allen asks, I'm a UK medical student. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on the new contract our government wants to impose on junior doctors. Yesterday, the juniors went on strike to protest against it. Heather, I've read about this a lot, but not nearly as much as I would, and I wish I was more knowledgeable about what the intricacies are. My completely uneducated view of this does appear to be that like they seem to be abusing junior doctors. I will freely admit I'm biased to believing that because I think we abuse residents like crap in the United States as well. The idea that like I had to and I'm not even talking about the pay. I'm just talking about sort of the work hours and how it was. I am not yet convinced that 36-hour shifts were a good idea. I'm not convinced that working 100+ hour weeks made me a better doctor. It certainly made me a worse human being, and I don't think that made me a good doctor. I think there are ways of doing medical education that would be better. So given that it seems they're trying to pay you guys less and make you work more and everything else that's going on, I'm sympathetic to not thinking this is such a good idea, but I will freely admit it's something I should become more knowledgeable in, and now I will. I will go read about this, and next time if you ask me the question, I will have a more formed opinion. Ikuan. Oh, wait. Saw that one already. Midnight SG, teething tablets, baby Orajel, and infant Tylenol. Do you recommend any of those for a 6 to 9 month old teething baby? What are teething tablets? Oh, okay, baby Orajel is basically like pain meds. So sure, infant Tylenol is also for pain. So sure, always in discussion with your physician. So I'm all for that. Teething tablets, I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but if you're talking like, we used to give our kid like frozen waffles to gnaw on, and that the cold made him feel better. And plus you have like somebody else made this joke already, but it was like the built-in drool cups in the waffles. So I'm fine with that. Anything which helps relieve, the baby's the baby's pain, because babies are in pain. It hurts. So that's fine. I can't really say that I'm against it. However, it's a myth that teething babies are more likely to get fevers. So if you're giving the Tylenol for fever prevention, don't do that. If you're giving it because it's pain and you're trying to relieve pain, I have a hard time not treating symptoms, and no one should be in pain. Musical dork, how should you dispose of unneeded or expired medications? Oh, God. Oh, see, this is where like the lawyer in me needs to be like, you should never take an expired medication, but the healthcare triage host would be like, I ignore that stuff all the time. For me, because like it's like the milk expiration. It's like that's a sell-by date. It's not it's not a bad date. My dad is a retired surgeon, and he used to give us expired TIMECODE, if I remember. I don't think TIMECODE exists anymore, but it was this cold and cough medication that was so old it had like it had curdled, and we used to have to shake it up to try to get the solids. And I can remember trying to swallow the curds, and it was so past due, and we turned out just fine. I will freely admit I don't throw all my medications away the second they expire. Now, some medications need to be refrigerated, and obviously if you haven't refrigerated them or if they've gone past an expiration date, that's true. Vaccines, same kind of thing. They need to be stored, and they do have a date at which, like, yes. But, when you're talking about like Advil, Tylenol, or some other just tablet that's sitting in, in the closet, I don't know. There's no good answer. There really isn't. But again, the lawyer in me tells you that an expiration date should be followed. If anyone ever watches this and uses it in a court of law, I want it to be said that I did say that expiration dates exist. And probably, I imagine they're there because they should be followed. At the same time, you can read between the lines here. Anyway, Akram Alakel, why are women more likely to get STIs? What are some of the ways to prevent it? Is that true? I don't know. You've just blown my mind. You say that with such authority. You're making me, I just never assumed that. I ask the same questions of patients in clinic, and then I treat and screen them exactly the same way. I do not think that girls are more likely, or women are more likely than men to get STIs. What are some of the ways to prevent it? Condom usage. That's your number one way. That is the best way to prevent STIs. Keep your physical contact of areas that could get STIs from contacting. Now you're blowing my mind. I got to look this up. I don't believe this. I don't know. I don't want to say you're wrong and then turn out to be wrong, but I don't necessarily believe that is the case. I need to look that up. Are you looking it up right now? Okay, you let me know if that is crazy. But I mean, maybe they're certain. It's not true. It's not true. It's not true. Stan says so. And if Stan says so, I believe it. Less likely to show symptoms. Now that is possible.
They don't get treated.
And then so there you go. Men perhaps don't get treated because they're less likely to show symptoms, but here we're feeding into the problem. So it's like, I don't know that is true. I would worry equally as much about a man and a woman getting an STI. Ways of preventing it, safe sex. Lots of good YouTube stuff on that, I'm sure. Plus, I'm sure it'll be one of the main topics in my future show. Aaron and his kids talk about sex. We'll just do a few more here, and then go. Lath's Android, are quail eggs better for health than chicken eggs? Why are chicken eggs bad for health? I don't even understand what you're asking. Do they have medicinal properties? I don't know of that. If you're talking about the cholesterol, my God, man, we did a whole episode on how the dietary cholesterol is not really linked, and that even the USDA in their recent guidelines just got published removed the recommendations for dietary cholesterol, because it turns out that eating stuff like eggs is not what makes you get high cholesterol for the vast majority of people. So I would like to know on what outcome criteria are you judging them better for health? Because chicken eggs are deliciously healthy. I don't know what the problem is there. Terrytown, I'm going to Hawaii for my honeymoon. So did we. Well, a long time ago, we went to Maui, my wife and I. My fiancee wants us to do a session in a tanning bed to get a base tan. Bad idea? Horrible idea. Terrytown. Why? Tanning is horrifically bad for you. Okay, first of all, where do I even start with this? One, base tan, complete myth. Complete myth. That crap is gone. Two, tanning beds, why? It's like it's just to get cancer, right? I mean, no. I don't even like the idea that you're going into the sun without protection to get a tan, period, let alone going to a device without protection specifically to bombard your skin with ultraviolet radiation. Why? Why? I'm so upset about this. Your fiance needs to come on right now. No, I'm totally in favor. Sorry, I banged the table there. I'm totally in favor of Hawaiian and honeymooning in Hawaii. I'm totally against the idea that you're going to use a tanning bed and the idea that you're going to use it for a base tan. There's nothing good about that. Nothing. Terrible idea. Terrible. Oh, you totally just derailed all of Healthcare Triage Live, Terrytown. Ariel or WRF, how precise are expiration dates on medication? Really? 2 people? All right, go ask Music Dork, because I've already answered that question. Jordan Johnson, I've asked before about risks of lowered sperm count from laptops. My parents are now concerned about other mobile devices, like phones and tablets connected to chargers. Is there an actual risk here? Jordan Johnson, why are your parents so invested in your sperm count? I'm really concerned about that. Again, it's the heat thing. That's what I've heard of most, is that it's the heat idea. And most mobile devices like phones and tablets connected to chargers are not going to heat up that hot. Plus, I mean, come on. I don't even want to do this. Are you holding it on your crotch? Wow, look at that. Are you holding it on? That's what we need. We need a sound machine so I can just play things. Are you holding it on your crotch while it's charging? I don't even understand how this is happening. So I think you're worrying too much. Why are you so? I want to know, Jordan Johnson, why you're so worried about your sperm count and why your parents are. Are you having infertility issues? Because let's talk about real things as opposed to the mythical issues of potential lowered sperm counts that your parents keep bringing up. Let's do that. We're out of time. You know what? These are all such good questions, including I see one from Cameron Alexander. You know what? I'm going to Cameron Alexander's question. You deserve it. Do you agree with the CDC's plan to eliminate Hep B with immunizing infants, or do you think that because of how low risk the disease is for infants and the high aluminum, it should be spaced out? Oh, Cameron, I absolutely support immunizing people against Hep B. It is a hugely problematic disease that is significant, and we immunize babies because that's when we get them. And that is when we should do it. It is definitely a problem. The high aluminum content is not something that is real or something that we should be worried about in the sense that has been proven in any way to be an issue. These vaccines, I should say, are safe and they are effective. And I am 100% for the idea that we are immunizing kids with Hep B. All my children were immunized against Hep B. I've been immunized against Hep B. They were immunized when they were infants. It absolutely is something that we should do. Benefits vastly outweigh the nobody even knows that there's a risk. It's this theoretical and risk that no one can ever detect or do anything about. 100% for it. Everyone else's questions, we're putting you on the list for next week. We will get to them. Thank you so much for turning into Healthcare Triage Live. I need to go to the dentist. That's why I got to stop. Pray to God I got no cavities, because one of my teeth has been slightly bothering me, and I'm hoping it's not that and it just goes away. But I'll let you know. Anyway, patreon.com/healthcaretriage. Continue to support us. We really, really do appreciate it. We got big plans for the show. Lots of new stuff coming up this year. It's exciting. We're going to do it. If you want to get merch, hctmerch.com. You get the mug. It's back there. There's a great poster. We should probably do some other stuff. We're talking about a new mug in the future. Check out facebook.com/healthcaretriage and the Reddit site where we got some of these great questions. Go check that too. I can never remember what it is. It's like... Thanks for tuning. We'll see. Oh, please go watch Monday's episode on the USPSTF. I don't know why so few people are watching that specific episode, but it's important and we'd like to see it watched. Continue to watch Healthcare and Triage News on Friday. Spoiler alert, it's on a paper that I actually wrote. It'll be exciting. And next week, we will be back with Healthcare Triage and then Healthcare Triage Live next Wednesday. Have a great week. Talk to you soon.